Next session that we're going to have for you is a critical piece of the CPO puzzle, and that's the wholesale side of things. It's sourcing the pre-owned vehicles that are eligible for CPO. And I'm very happy to have with us this afternoon Greg Levy, good friend of mine from Columbus Fair Auto Auction, leading the discussion. So, Greg, I'll hand it off to you. Welcome to the panel as well.
Thank you, and welcome, everyone. First, let me just say, this is the second time that I've had to follow Ricky Beggs, and I'm not a happy guy about having to do that. From this point forward, it's going to be a thing that I don't follow Ricky Beggs. So, first of all, let me introduce the panelists, if I may. First is Stephanie Gingras. Did I do that right? From DA of Southwest. I've practiced that name all the way down here. Mike Francis, the National Sales Manager from Smart Auction, and Doug Hadden, the Executive Director of Dealer Services for ADESA. So the idea of this meeting, of this panel, was to have an open forum, open conversation relative to exploring strategies for acquisition of CPO-eligible vehicles, as well as reviewing technology outlets to identify and source CPO vehicles and market CPO vehicles. So with that said, and recognizing the value of what CPO represents to our franchised auto dealer, in Q2 2014, 1 in 5 vehicles was CPO. In Q3 2015, 1 in 4 vehicles was CPO. So very obviously a big part of any franchise dealer's used car market. But likewise, they similarly have problems with sourcing. So the first thing I want to talk about is acquisition, and I'm going to throw this to the entire panel. What are some of the innovative technologies that are available to dealers to help source and identify CPO-eligible vehicles? And with chivalry not being dead, Stephanie, I'm going to let you go first.
Thank you, Greg. Sourcing on the wholesale market, I think, is a new concept. The panel before had a different idea of what an auction's idea of sourcing a CPO vehicle is. The type of auction that I run would love to have CPO vehicles available for my dealers, and I don't know if the sourcing is out there exactly to be able to get an independent dealer to understand that the inventory that they have on my lot, both in-lane and online, is CPO eligible. So the technology doesn't really exist to be able to identify those from my point of view. Love to work directly with my technology company to make sure we could identify those vehicles, create a condition report that would make it so that, hey, Joe dealer, you have 40 cars here on my lot, of which 5 could be CPO eligible, and go from there.
Doug, you want to answer the same question relative to, and also you might want to bring up the condition report as well.
Yes, I think it all starts with a condition report. I think a couple things on that. As an industry, we've done in the past, not maybe a fantastic job of all looking at a condition report the same way. You know, if you're looking at a 4.3 grade vehicle in one auction and looking at a 4.3 in another, it could be 2 totally separate. 4.3 from one person is not 4. So what we did is we got together, and now we have an auto grade system. I think that helps a little bit. Is it perfect? Is a 4.3 at one auction still a 4.? It's not perfect because there's still people involved and there's still that little, but it's way better than it used to be. And then I think on the identifying those vehicles side, besides the condition reports, which again, I really feel they're getting better. I see a huge improvement, especially with the online condition reports. And I think part of that is the actual codes that are used or the descriptions that are used for online purchases. We've actually gone to all the manufacturers, found out what those eligibility rules are, and we let dealers, we'll let a Honda dealer say this is a CPO eligible vehicle or a Ford dealer, as long as they meet that criteria. It's up to that individual to make sure they're meeting those vehicles meet that criteria. But when you go online to buy a car static online, it will say CPO eligible, and that makes it pretty easy.
If I could interject, I'm sorry. The gentleman on the panel before said grow the middle. So from my standpoint, being from a wholesale auto auction, I want to be able to source those vehicles that the dealer has purchased CPO eligible that come through the independent channels that may not be CPO eligible unless I particularly walk them and tell them, hey, you might have a car here that you could potentially take to the right OEM and get CPO'd. So I want to grow the middle.
And that's a great point, because here's what happens is somebody will take in a trade, because each one of these programs is they're not all the same, they're not completely different, but the eligibility rules are different for each program. And a Ford dealer will take in a Honda, he may not know eligibility, and it might get up Stephanie's auction, and there's an opportunity missed.
I agree.
Mike, I
Just want to make sure my mic was on.
I'm going to give Mike a shot here.
Yeah, so going back to your original question, I thought, what innovative technologies are out there. I think it goes back to the inventory management systems that are in place at probably most, if not all, dealerships that are integrated into their retail results, and then tied back into the wholesale marketplaces that have the inventory. So being able to easily identify how much inventory is available, where it's at, what auction it's at, and then moving beyond that, once you identify the inventory and where it's at, getting to that marketplace, if it's Smart Auction, if it's one of the other marketplaces, using the tools that we have to actually filter for the type of certified unit that you're looking for.
Can you give us some contrast on the value of a vehicle coming through Smart Auction that has been certified, the conversion, the retention?
Yeah, that's a tough question. We, if you looked on Smart Auction, you wouldn't see, a certified unit. You wouldn't see a pre-qualified unit. We do allow sellers to identify cars as ready for retail, or if they do say it's a CPO car, or it's Honda certified or Chrysler certified, then it needs to meet the standards of that. But we don't really look at our inventory as either certified or not certified. We give dealers the tools to find the inventory and that fits their needs, but it's not listed as pre-qualified inventory, because most of what we have is not sitting at the auction. It hasn't gone through reconditioning, and it hasn't been identified by the manufacturer as certified.
Doug, you want to address that same question? Do you guys have any performance metrics as it relates to cars that have been previously certified?
First of all, Greg, that question wasn't on the email that you sent earlier, so we have to think
You're
about
right,
this
it
one.
wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know I don't think we actually measure those metrics, but we do give both in-lane and online the opportunity to have that listing category as CPO eligible. So you can literally sort available inventory by CPO eligibility. It does, and I don't know what the percentage is, whether that's what the open sale percentage, I can't say
Well, then,
for sure.
let me get back to a question, Doug, that was on the list that I'll read verbatim because it was.
Did I not go all the way down your email, Greg?
Yeah, it was at the bottom.
It was in there.
You guys read the email? Oh, okay.
Stephanie, I wouldn't have known if it weren't for Stephanie, just so you know. So Doug, ADESA maintains a significant footprint in the online closed sale environment for manufacturers. Many of these CPO vehicles are being sold in that environment and making it before making it to the open sale.
Yes.
So what impact does this have on sourcing? What impact does this have on availability and on pricing?
Wow. Okay.
That was on the email, Doug.
That was, yeah, I should have studied it harder. I think a couple things on that. One, yes, we enjoy about 94% of the managed inventories for all the captive finance companies, so we have a lot of experience at it. And I would say a few years back that we had retention or buy-through rates on your factory grounded units at your stores. In some cases, in some manufacturers, as high as 95%. That was huge. I think we've seen an easing of that. I think if you've seen some of the earlier presentations, we know we got the pipeline starting to fill up. Leasing, last time I looked, was pushing 30% of all what you're doing out there in retail.
29% last month.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. And it's the chart looks like it's going to keep going. So has it changed? Yeah, it's definitely changed. I think it's the selection has and the volumes have slowed things down a little bit. I think it's still probably well over 50% of those lease terminations at your dealerships you're buying. Pricing wise, again, it's everything else. It's volume will drive down the price no matter how you look at it. I think it's important to note that what we see and how we try to help folks is, that there might be, going back to Mike's point on all the inventory management systems, you guys know what you need. When that car comes through, grounded at your dealership that you don't need, it's going to go up to the next group of dealers to take a look at it in your closed market. Somebody's going to need that car. You need to be on the other end looking don't be afraid to take that car from the other dealer just because he passed on it. He didn't pass on. I heard the other day, oh yeah, I passed on those because they're all rats because that dealer didn't buy them. Well, the grounded dealer didn't buy it because he's pretty sharp at inventory management, and he knows that whatever model it was, he's got 4 of those in stock already, and they're not fast turners. So he passed on those 3 cars because he does not need them for his perfect inventory. So when you look at those cars, don't think they're passed over because they're bad cars. Take a look at those, look at the condition reports, and you can make it, and I think that's going to be a big thing for you.
Okay, thanks. Hey, Mike, Ally's diversifying their portfolio. How does this affect dealers looking to Ally for CPO sourcing?
Well, I mean, it leads right into kind of what, we've been trying to do at Smart Auction for the last 8 years that I've been there in diversifying our buyer base. So, diversification on the front end and the retail side, booking contracts for other OEMs. We need, for to drive our values, we need to get the buyers for those cars to be on Smart Auction when they come back in the off-lease portfolio.
Okay. Stephanie, this was on the list, so I'm gonna throw this one at you. Just knowing how innovative your auction's been in the past, what are some of the innovative things you've done to create an avenue for your sellers to be able to run CPO units through your auction and get more money?
Currently, nothing.
You should have responded to that email with it.
Currently, nothing. I think being from an auction that doesn't have a captive finance or a closed sell, I'm looking at how do I get those vehicles that trickle down through the independent dealerships that come to my auction, and I don't have a reporting tool. Let's take green light a step further from my point of view. How do I say to my dealer, hey, yes, you've got a green light car. It's also, we've done a CR that is CPO CR'd. So you may want to think, after you purchase it, taking it to the correct OEM and getting it CPO'd so that when it gets on your independent lot, you're going to have that millennial buyer base. Because cars are aging, right? The stream that we have of vehicles now are going to age eventually. And even though we have restraints within the CPO, they're going to age and they're going to be on an independent lot, i.e. a wholesale lot.
So Doug, do you find your auctions preemptively marketing to your buyer base that CPO eligible vehicles?
Yeah, I think we do a pretty good job of helping the dealers find the cars they need, whatever that happens to be. But we, obviously, with the remarketing of the off-lease cars, that's a focus for us. That's a focus to make sure we have the right cars available to the right dealers, and we do that in a lot of different ways. One of those being we'll help you set up a safe search that here's the cars that you typically buy, here's where they're available, here's where they're going to be online, in lane, wherever they are, and pretty much put those things on a platter so you guys know where they're at. I think one of the things that's really changed for us on that is we used to be very specific on, hey, your closest auction is here, and here's those cars that are offered. That limited everything. Now with the influx of brokering those transports out to make. When was the last time you saw a transporter with one car on it? I mean, it just doesn't happen anymore. Every time you see a transport, it's pretty much a full load. So I think we've expanded our, hey, you need these 5 cars, one's 100 miles away, one's 400 miles away, and one's at your local auction. So I think we've done a pretty good job of helping our dealers find those cars and get them wherever they are.
Mike, do you want to add something there?
Yeah. So, what we do, this morning I looked on our site, and, we had 28,000 cars. I started thinking about, identifying CPO eligible cars, and, being a former CPO guy, it's typical program, say it's 5 years old, it's 75,000 miles. You look at, and that's kind of the basics for, all right, does it qualify? And then you got to start going down the line. And, if you look at that, about 80% of what we have is CPO eligible. So it's awareness, at the dealer level. And, our field, that's why we have a field that's, whose sole job is to go out and shake the dealers and make them aware of what inventory is out there, because we get inventory, not just Ally inventory, but inventory from other consigners, and it's our job to keep those consigners on the site. We need to get out there and push their inventory and market them and show them, as Doug was saying, help them set up a save search, show them the tools that we have in the system that they can use to kind of remind them every day that, hey, there's inventory that's hitting the auction.
Do you believe the CR gives enough information to the dealer?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's, the CR, obviously
To
is
determine
dependent
eligibility.
on the seller. So it's not just the CR itself, but, there's, the seller might be a dealer who did the condition report himself. For cars that are posted on Smart Auction. It might be an independent third party that does the inspection. And as a buyer, if I'm an active buyer, I'm used to that. I go in, I can filter by 3PI, third party inspections, if I want to just see those. But you still have to look at the cars. I mean, you're not, even if we went through and said this is this kind of, we struggle with saying, hey, this is a CPO eligible car, because we really don't know. If it's a car that's grounded and it gets grounded today and it gets posted tomorrow, and we haven't gone and kicked the tires and checked it out, we don't know that it's going to qualify for the CPO program, but we might be able to say, hey, it's CPO eligible, and here's the tools to find those cars, but then the dealers still have to look at the CR and take that.
One of the things we've seen dealers start the process of marking their cars, their consignment cars, as previously CPO certified, or which would indicate that eligibility.
Yeah, so dealers are allowed in our site to either mark a car ready for retail, or they can mark it as certified. We do have actually a program where we allow certain OEMs, dealers, to post certified pre-owned cars that are maybe aged for sale to other certified dealers. But if they do that, the car immediately qualifies for arbitration if I get that car in and it doesn't meet the standards of the Chrysler CPO program, then it's immediately eligible for
So it takes
arbitration.
arbitration a step further.
Yeah. Because you as a seller said this car is certified.
It's like paying the Apple tax. You get that, and you're able to, at that point, return it and not have any headaches, right? That's how I look at it.
So Mike, let me ask you, and this is the last question I had that was previously given to you, so this should be right up your alley here.
Let me get my notes.
What advice would you give, or do you have for consigners in the audience to help them promote their CPO eligible units?
Yeah, so that was a tough one for me because
I'm going to give it to Doug too, just so you know. So.
Okay. If we base it on the seller, whatever the seller wants. So if the seller is a consigner that has a lot of off-lease product, and they're able to determine that this car has been or is a certified unit or pre-qualified, and they want to market that, then we would just set them up with an identifier so that when we get those listings, we tag those cars in the system as certified ready or certified eligible or whatever they need. So we can identify those in the systems, and then more importantly, I think, back them up with some marketing programs so that the dealers know this is how I find those cars, this is what it means, and then the consignor then just passes that in. The tough part about that question to me was we don't have too many that would do that, and if you really don't know, if the car hasn't gone through a certification process at the auction or something, by doing that, you're almost kind of degrading the other cars, which may, maybe, still might be good quality cars that can,
There's no friends at an auction. It's okay. There's competition.
Doug, you want to take that one on? Or?
Well, we identify them online as CPO eligible. Once the car's inspected, I think what we really do to help promote it is online having that CPO eligible button that you can sort by. I want to see the cars that are CPO eligible. Boom, and it brings them all up. Whatever brand, you can sort it however you want to
What
sort
would
it.
be very interesting is to know what type of performance metrics you have on how many people click that button in a search. I'm not asking, but it would be nice to have.
Yeah, you know what? We'll talk about that because I'd like to see that too. And I think it's actually pretty high. And the other thing we do too, and I think Mike and both of them said, it's awareness. It's like, hey, you know, you've got this aged unit on your lot. You know, that's a CPO eligible car for the guy next door. Let's go ahead and make sure everybody's aware of that. And we try to have, if it's your brand and you've got a CPO car that you've spent the money on, and we all have had that issue, if it goes back to the inventory management, you know, I spent the money, I certified the car, it's now 64 days old. As a used car manager, I'm gonna take a hit in the pocket because it's now aged. Hey, let's get that thing up and let's make sure everybody knows it's a certified car, make sure it's properly displayed as a certified car and gets sold.
An off-lease is easy because easier because you've got the standard CR. When it comes in as a dealer vehicle that we're doing the dealer CR on, because we do 90% of our dealer CRs, and so we would need some sort of CR that would make it be CPO eligible. So that's just a step back.
And that is the hardest part because they're all so different. Every manufacturer, you got to make sure you're
Correct.
getting the right
You know,
one.
my conversations with Stephanie, I know that you were passionate about the CR process and what it meant to our auctions. So, and this time is flying. I didn't realize we have a clock down here telling us how long we've gone, and we're nearing the end, and I wanted to save some time for audience questions in the event that you had any questions. But before I do that, one question Stephanie brought up that I thought was very interesting was that what can auctions do to augment simulcast provider efforts in promoting CPO eligible vehicles, help identify and promote? And so Stephanie, I'd like to give that question to you.
I think they touched on it. Obviously, tagging the vehicles and making it so the filter, the sort on our websites, both in our inventory management on our dealer side, or excuse me, on our auction management side, as well as our customer side. So that the dealer liaisons, the people that are going out and shaking the dealer's hands, understand what they're selling to the customers, both online and in lane.
Okay. Does anyone, it is nearing 4, does anyone have any questions? Because I'm going to ask one last takeaway question of each one of the panelists before we go. Please.
Basically, I've had issues where condition reports are not uniform, and I've had to deal with even the color being not exactly as mentioned on the color car. It's a different color on the condition report, and car is a different color. So what are we doing in order to get it more accurate? And the condition report is as good as the person doing the condition report. So I think that involves a lot of training and making sure that it is what it is.
From an auction standpoint, any CR that an employee of mine does, I believe that the auctions should stand behind. So whether it's an off-lease, repo, a dealer CR, any type of CR that we do, because they are different, I think we stand behind it. I think we need to be able to charge for it. I think that if we could be able to charge for the services that we provide, too, that makes it a little bit easier to stand behind it.
I'm with you.
Let's charge.
And there are some production level quality data coming out that are evolving that we're going to be able to use that gives us access to that production level data from the manufacturer.
Right. So
We're seeing more and more of it every day.
to your point, you know, we do the condition reports are way better than they used to be. I think we can all agree on that. Is there still mistakes? Yes. You know, we're trying to take some of that data from the manufacturer and put it into that condition report so you can literally almost see the build sheet on that car. I think the photos are getting better. High resolution photos are coming out. We're definitely getting better. Hopefully that will not happen much more. Hopefully you will not have to deal with that.
And our access to
we're
that
really
data
working towards
is
it.
becoming easier as
Yes.
well, right? Navitas and Navis data, stuff that we previously didn't have access to, we're getting better and better access
Yes, absolutely.
to. Mike, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we get the condition report from whoever did it, right? So the inspection company, it's a dealer, it's a third party, it's, you know, if we have the build data, we integrate that and, you know, we send information to Chrome to try to validate everything. If you miss something, I think it's important for the auction to step up and make it right or you know, do what they have to. You know, if it comes across as the wrong color green and that's a big deal to you as a buyer, then, you know, the auction needs to step up on that.
Any other questions? Then I'll ask the last question of the panelists. Is there any one innovation that we as an audience should take away from this? It wasn't in the email, Mike. Is there any one innovation that we should take away from this panel and investigate for CPO sourcing?
Innovation?
New technology, innovation,
Yeah, I mean,
any takeaway?
yeah, it's tough. I don't know that there's a magic pill out there. I just, my thing's always been and I think we've seen it in the last couple of days, but, don't limit your CPO sourcing to 2- and 3-year-old lease cars. I mean, that's a great source. It's the primary source, in my opinion. It's a great foundation. There's a ton of them coming back next year. But, dealers that do well in CPO understand the value of what CPO means to them. They know how to sell it. They know how to market it. They can do it for a 5-year-old car with 70,000 miles as well as a 2-year-old car. So, innovation, I go back to what I said earlier about inventory management tools. The information's at your fingertips. I think you kind of push the boundaries, push your OEM if you're not getting the programs and the marketing support that you need, but understand your CPO program and what you need to do to maximize it.
Thanks. Stephanie?
Innovation, when we look at us as consumers, what do we like as consumers? And for me, it's ease of transaction. If something is easy, if something is 2 clicks rather than 10 clicks on my phone, I'm going to purchase it, or I'm going to finish that transaction. So I think the innovation, especially marketing to these millennials, is important to make sure that we keep it easy. Don't make it so challenging, both customer-facing, online, in-lane, whatever, that 15 clicks in, they're like, I'm done. I don't want to buy this anymore. So ease of use.
Innovation, I'm going to go backwards a little bit from innovation. So you have your private label, take advantage of that. Obviously, that's easy, and it's probably the cheapest way as far as buy fees and so forth. But I'm going to go backwards to the point where I had a conference the other day, and I asked the guys, how many of you folks have a salesperson in the service drive every morning saying hello to your customers? And I could not believe it. It was like 1 out of 60 raised their hand. And I asked him, I said, so how many vehicles are you getting out of that service drive? He goes, we're actually buying more than we're trading for. So they're actually buying cars right out of the service drive. And I said, how many of those are actually CPO eligible cars? He says about 20% of them. So if I get 10 cars, 2 of them are CPO cars. How much did it cost you to acquire that car in your service drive? Right? You've probably already got the story on the car. You sold the car 2 years ago. It's got 15,000 miles on it, and he's been in the service drive 4 times. How hard is that car going to be to sell when it comes to CPO, right? So I'd say back out the technology and put a salesman in your service drive and get some of those cars right out of your service drive.
Here's a car guy talking. That's it. Is there any other questions? Nobody else has anything? Well, we're well past our allotted time, and I appreciate the panelists, appreciate your time. And like we said, it was going to fly, and it flew.